talking to us about a national approach to distributed ledger technology, specifically about the Dutch blockchain coalition. So I'll invite Frans up now to speak.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I feel a little bit embarrassed to stand here in the High Church of Science in Cambridge, born from Rotterdam, and being an example of how a blockchain is being run on a national basis. But I'm going to do it anyway. Otherwise, you will be very bored in the next half hour. So I'll do it. So I'm with TNO. TNO is an applied research organization in the Netherlands, founded by the government about 80 years ago. 3,000 scientists working in various areas, so health, industry, energy, and I happen to be in the ICT unit. I don't have a formal function. I just report into the managing director, and sometimes he picks up the phone and tells me to do something. And in this case, it was the Dutch Blockchain Coalition that started in March 2017. And at that point in time, there was a nice document with an action agenda, and the task was to make it work. So from paper to get it moving. So basically, I've organized that blockchain coalition over the last 2.5 years. And since September, I moved on. I'm now in the next new fashion, AI, also a blockchain coalition again. But it was fun. It was 2.5 years of very interesting experience with many, many organizations, both in the Netherlands and outside. And I think on that basis, I can give you a bit of a view of what's going on. And then for my talk, what I will do is first to explain a little bit why it works well in the Netherlands. So AI is a little bit of a different animal, I find out now. But with blockchain, it's a good marriage between the technology and the culture of the country. And I'll explain a little bit more what that is about. And then show you what the blockchain landscape is. So what organizations are working in it, how are we structured, how do we work together? And then how we got to this national approach, because that is quite a unique thing I found out in talking to other countries. So then we also evolved over time. So 2.5 years sounds short, but still we made some changes along the way, which I think could be interesting. And I can share with you some of the things I've seen from other countries. So Netherlands, by no stretch of the imagination, is the first or the best or what have you. But there's other countries that do similar things with blockchain, and I would like to share that a little bit with you. And then I will end with 2 learnings. So why this happy marriage between the Netherlands and blockchain? Well, first of all, I'm sure many of you have been to Amsterdam, and I'm sure you've been very cultural, and you went to the Rijksmuseum, and you went to the Van Gogh Museum, you did all the right things. But maybe some of you also went to the red light district and the weed shop, and maybe even enjoyed the bombastic gay scene in Amsterdam. No show events needed, but I'm sure you know this picture of Amsterdam. So both the beautiful 17th century canals, but also this sentiment of, we don't accept authority, we don't want hierarchies, we do what we want, basically. And it's been around for 500 years. Also, when we liberated ourselves from Spanish domination, it goes way back. And since then, we really needed this culture of, we do it ourselves, nobody tells us what to do, even not a king. So limited respect for authority. That's been there, and it's part of our culture. Then a second thing, which is also interesting, I think, if you look at history, is for some strange reason, people from the Mediterranean, like 4,000 or 5,000 years ago or so, went up north and decided that the Netherlands was a beautiful place to stay. Wet, damp, cold, a lot of water coming from the west, from you guys, thank you very much. And we had to protect ourselves against it. And at that point in time, there was no central authority, there was no ways to organize ourselves, there was no king who could levy taxes. So people had to, in communities, organize themselves against the threat of water. So they built dikes, they built turbs, they built all kinds of things to make them work. And still, until today, that is within our political system. So we vote, and of course for parliament, but we also vote for our, what we call hoogheemraadschappen. Those are the entities who defend ourselves against the water, bottom up. So there's no centralized structure, we organize it ourselves. We don't need a king, we don't need the parliament even to do that. So there's this mentality of, we'll fix it. And we want to do it in a decentralized manner. So distributed, you could say. So you feel that this cultural background and the way that the sentiments around blockchain and the whole anti-hierarchy works within that context, work well. Now there's some other reasons why I think it works well to cooperate. So blockchain is very much about cooperation and alignment between parties. On one way we have big enough funds to do some investments, maybe not as much as here in the UK, but still it's big enough to do some things. But yet small enough to find each other easily. So to go from Amsterdam to Rotterdam is like a 70 kilometers, 1 hour drive. It's everybody's always close by. It's not big difficulty to get from one end to the other. And yet there are some real relevant institutions. I believe, and there's some people who think differently, but the government is pretty well organized in the Netherlands. There's some real big banks. There's a well-functioning logistical system. Those are important ingredients to make it work. And then you also need people that like innovations, that like to develop new stuff, and there's some good startup scenes there as well. And then finally, if you look at the blockchain use cases, many have to do with food provenance, with logistics, with finance, and those happen to be coincidentally, there's no design behind it, but those happen to be the things that are our economy, basically. That's what we live off. So this whole set makes some sort of a unique DNA that fits technology and country well together. This also meaning to say that you cannot replicate, can't say here, okay, great Dutch example, let's replicate it, let's do the same thing. No, you're different, you have a different background, different structure, different culture, everything. So the examples that I'm given and the way that we've structured should not be the way forward, but works well in the Dutch context. So let's look a little bit at what the Dutch blockchain scene here. And this is a report that was done by Beerschot, which is a consulting company, tasked by the Economic Board of Utrecht to show what's going on in the Netherlands, which organizations and in what territories are they working. And well, you see it's a lot, that's one thing, there's many organizations, and then I'll go quickly around to share with you in which areas people are involved or are experimenting blockchain. So government, healthcare, food, transport industry, energy, financial sector, cryptocurrencies, certification, legal, organizational advice, technical developers, startups, incubators, research and education, TNO is there, and financing. So it's quite a broad array, many different organizations in different areas that are trying to get to terms with the technology and see what it means to them. Now a little bit more then about the structure. So there was a flat picture. Just, okay, these are the folks that are somehow interested in doing things with blockchain. Now, in the middle side you see some of the ecosystems in Holland. So the one on top, we're very modest, Dutch Blockchain Coalition, we're the number one, of course. Number two, Yes Delft, very close to us, that's part of the TU Delft and TNO, by the way, it's a startup scene. Blocklab in Rotterdam, very much looking into logistics, so the logistical use cases for blockchain and energy. Odyssey, those are the folks on the left side, they really have a great hackathon once a year in Groningen, followed up by different events, about 500 folks coming there. So really interesting if you want to go somewhere, have fun, have a great weekend there. This is the one to go. Amsterdam Science Park, also financial sector, Blockchain Authority Utrecht doing things also in that area. And in the south of the country in Heerlen, there's a whole community of pension funds, IBM is there, Accenture, startup scene that are working together also on blockchain. So that's a little bit the ecosystem, and there are more, there's the fork, there's others, but this is just a picture. On the right hand side, I've put out some real life applications coming out of Dutch organizations. So the one on top, that's Moji Coffee. That is a startup that has invented a way to produce coffee, and with a QR code you can see where the coffee is coming from and what the farmer got for his coffee. So transparent and fair payment for people who are down the distribution line. Comgo WeTrade, that is finance, trade finance. ING, ABN AMRO, Rabobank are involved in there, so real life applications. GUTS, that is if you buy tickets in the Netherlands from some comedians, They don't want those tickets to be resold against much higher prices. With GOTS, there's a blockchain where you can see what the prices are, and you're protected against inflated prices there. And the one below, which I really like, Ewaarmerk. This is from a city, Enschede, in the east of the country. And what they do is they timestamp and they hash documents so that you can be absolutely sure that you have the right version and that it was at a particular point in time. So it's embedded in an application by a municipality. So startups, big corporates, and government, both real-life applications. Now, if you then draw the innovation pyramid, if you will, it's just one way of looking at it. Startups are active, are doing things. You see individual organizations experimenting with blockchain, and then there's these field labs, like in Rotterdam, like in Groningen, like in Utrecht, playing around mostly on topical, so let's say logistics, testing what it can mean for them. And then we get to the Dutch Blockchain Coalition. And what we wanted to do, and I get now to that part, is to really look at, say, the foundation. So how can we make the whole structure function in the Netherlands? That was the general idea. So these folks are doing great stuff, but they are relying on certain key inputs as well. So how did we get to this traditional approach then? Of course, and Nigel already said, distributed ledgers have been around for a long period of time already. It's nothing new. It's just repackaged and remodeled in a great new thing called Bitcoin, which you can also say, is it that great with the electricity consumption, etc. But anyway, it caught the attention, and we got involved at TNO sometime 2013, 2014, when we got asked by the Ministry of Justice to look at the dark web, and they saw that there were payments done with Bitcoin. You see there in the hiccup there, 2012, this is Google Trends, where Bitcoin searches were being done. You see here that there was, all of a sudden, 2013, there was a lot of interest, probably academic community, but also people who were starting to see how they could make money out of Bitcoin and who could also apply it for not so nice web environments, like dark web. So we got tasked to look into it and see if it was really anonymous and what could be done with this Bitcoin, etc. So we did that. But then, of course, when you start to look into the technology, you also start to think, what else can you do with it other than robbing people or selling heroin on the web or whatever. So you see a certain power in the technology that came up. And we were not alone. There was also University of Delft, Radboud, Center of Math and Informatics in Amsterdam. So we came together and we said, this is bigger. And we need to organize ourselves around this. And you guys, UK came out with a very good document in 2015 by the government, this distributed ledger technology beyond blockchain. So that also triggered us like, okay, here is a national approach really needed. It's not just something for individual parties or smaller ecosystems. So then we get this funny Polder model in action in the Netherlands. Lots of people starting to talk about what needs to be done. We went to the Ministry of Economic Affairs and said, look, we want some seed money to organize it. There's the man who gives it to the right-hand side, René Penning de Vries. And they said, okay, yeah, we see that this has national ramifications, but we want a program, but not just research. Also find corporates and governments to be part of the whole scene. So we went out with our great idea, like deploy so many PhDs and university professors and these research programs, and these corporates said, no, we don't want that. We want something much more short-term. We want the work agile, horrible. We want to have concrete results, really hands-on developments and learning what this technology is for us. So that led to these 3 action lines then that we ultimately defined in 2017. So we've started by looking at digital identities, and self-sovereign identity came up very soon. Conditions for blockchain, think about standardization, interoperability, making things secure, and how does this all work in society, blah, blah, blah. And the last one, human capital agenda, Like, how do we make sure that we have enough know-how in the Netherlands and educate people that they understand what they're doing? So 2017 we started, and I started in June actually. And the thing that we really felt also from the community that we were getting together, there were banks, there were energy companies, there were government institutes, there were universities. Everybody wanted to really get concrete and get things done. So now very soon we started to push out publications like the research agenda, like a publication on smart contracts and the legal implications. We looked at Sovereign. We really tested Sovereign to see how mature it was. We held conferences where we brought teachers together and at colleges to share their curriculum, etc. So really made sure that things were happening and there were concrete results. And you can also see that on the right-hand side. It is in Delft we have our home base, and there literally we have these post-its on the wall. And on these post-its you can see these 3 action lines, the greens, 1, 2, 3. The blue ones are working groups, orange is name, purple is what we're going to do in the year, and the yellow is real concrete results in the next 3 months. And every 3 months we refresh that and look again, have we been successful? Are we going to continue with this, yes or no? If no, we just tried it. There's no bad feelings, just evolutional theory, just let things work as they come along. But that really, it really led to results, and it really led to a very good atmosphere around the coalition. So by early 2018, we look back, we had just had a year or so that we were working, and we said, okay, this is cool, this is great, we're doing good stuff. We bring publications to the market, we are educating people, the community is growing. We all of a sudden got on the radar of IMF and World Bank and so on, so people started to notice us. It was a real fun experience. But the big question that we asked ourselves at that point in time, looking in the mirror, was, are we really making a difference? Are we changing the needle enough? Or are we just having a bunch of believers together, or skeptici? There were also some people skeptical, like Nigel. Is this enough, what we're doing? And our conclusion was, if we really want to make a change, we need to go to the boardroom. Because otherwise we remain on the tactical, operational level, and the real investments won't happen. So, I'll forget about this one for the sake of time. What we did was we hired this guy on the left side. He is a politician. He used to be a parliamentarian he used to be in the parliament. Used to be mayor in Eindhoven. Great guy who set up this whole tech joint center in Eindhoven with Philips, ASML, NXP. So somebody who understands innovation in a setting where government and corporate and industry have to come together, and research have to come together. And we asked his advice, and we hired him also in the process. And he said, look, what you're doing is great things, but you're not explaining well enough to the boardroom and to the people involved a little bit further away from, say, the blockchain scene, what the real end result is. You're not making it clear enough what the impact is of the technology. That needs to be crystal clear. And he forced us to rewrite, say, the agenda that we had into purpose instead of action lines. So we produced this document, this blockchain for good. It's on the website. It's just 15 pages or so. It's not an awful lot. And we presented that to 2 ministers here in the Netherlands. She's from Economic Affairs and Ministry of the Interior. The guy on the right, he is that small, in fact. It's not it's not a picture, but a very bright guy. And we noticed immediately by talking purpose instead of technology that completely changed everything. All of a sudden we came at Secretary Generals of the government institutes. We could all of a sudden first explain what the reason was why we were doing this, and then the technology came later and all the other funny things of action lines, and that really helped. And we made it also very visible in pictures, on the website, etc., in our presentations. And we said, okay, we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to redo identities. So self-sovereign identity is what we believe in, and we are going to drive that together with folks there. Logistics, use case, educational certificates, mortgages, compliance by design, basically subsidies in the right way, and pensions. Those were the things that we brought to the fore and that we presented to people which related to them. They understood them and they could see how this would work without having to understand all the complicated technology sides. So we went through this movement. We went through this phase of starting action lines, concrete, with the people who really wanted to do the work, and then now we're really in, with ministers, etc. And that is really helping. There we get the funds, there we get the interest, there we get things moving. But certainly we're not alone. There's countries that do things in a different manner, that organize themselves differently because of their background, for instance. Like Estonia, they have to completely rebuild their administration, and they use new technologies like blockchain for that. Singapore, I lived there for 3 years, was lucky enough to do that. Country completely focused on innovation and always wanting to be the first. Real fun to see that. So new technology comes up, Singapore runs after it like hell. Dubai copies Singapore in that manner, also wants to be the first always. Switzerland, of course, strong financial sector, and this mayor of Zug, who, I think he already retired, but this guy really said, come in, welcome, and gave a great area to be active in. Berlin, huge startup scene, and EU. There you really sense, if you talk to the people of DG Connect, that they have this big frustration. They have this post-traumatic stress syndrome from, say, the big platforms, from the Googles, from the Facebooks, and they say this is not going to happen again to us. We cannot allow this to happen again. And you hear this time again now also with the new EU Commission that they say, we're going to do whatever it takes to avoid another winner-takes-all from the US, and we're caught up in the act. So, different entities, different organizations doing these kind of investments. And I believe we all have something to contribute. So we liaise a lot with these countries and organizations. So finally, two learnings along the way. We were also subject of research by the TU Delft. There was a department there, Science Communication, and they studied how this Dutch Blockchain Coalition was evolving and how we organize ourselves and what we should do differently and better. And they make this comparison with water, H2O, and they said what you're doing well and which other public-private partnerships should also be doing is to keep your eye on the ball. So there's a result that you want to achieve, but the way how you get there, you should be flexible. So like water, sometimes your ice and then your moisture or whatever, you're fixed. And you should have the flexibility to move around. So whatever you do, also in the UK, I think, be flexible, but keep your eyes on the ball. That was for us, it sounds simple, but it was really important at a certain point in time when certain folks were really rigid and said, no, we have the action lines. No, we should be first doing this, that, or the other. And we said, well, if we really want to change the world, then we need to do something different there. Where we really went wrong, also maybe a nice learning, is we really tried hard to engage with the scientific community. And we had this Dutch blockchain research agenda, which was written together with roughly 15, 20 odd professors, researchers, where we said, okay, this is the body of research that we want to do on blockchain still. So we brought it out, I believe, in 2017, maybe early 2018, I forgot. And it's a document that is basically dead on arrival. So our idea was, out of this would come maybe the inspiration for researchers to go out and work with companies and say, okay, we're going after this fund, or we're going to do this, that, or the other. It just doesn't happen. And I haven't really found the key to unlock that, and it's now my successor who has to do that. But there is, if you look in the public-private partnerships, the banks, etc., they just want to move on. They want application, application, application. They are not too interested in the next technology that we want to apply or the next fundamental research. So if you as scientists want to engage, you really have to think hard in advance if you're engaging in such a public-private partnership, how you're going to do that and how you're going to engage with these kind of folks. And we've lost it along the way. So we are really great in practical results, in applied, in doing great stuff with all these folks, but we're not really good in, say, the scientific part. Okay, and then this is the last slide. These are the partners in the coalition, so really happy and proud of them. And they are also contributing financially, by the way, as well as in kind in the coalition. And it's been a great ride. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Frans. So do we have any questions then for our speaker at the front, please?
So I was interesting to hear that you said that the scientific part is the one that somehow went wrong in things you tried. So would you like to elaborate on this a bit more? What do you think was what failed, and if you just went back and did it again, like what would have been done differently, perhaps? Or
Yeah, my assumption was that with the research agenda on one hand, that was for me this sort of the vehicle that we could use to bring, say, the funding mechanisms together with, say, groups that would, no, well, wouldn't work, Nigel? Okay, so I'm naive. That was the hope. And we set up certain events where we brought researchers together with corporates. Well, the researchers came because they believed that these were great matching events where they would have the opportunity to explain what they were doing. Corporates weren't interested. Scientists were horrible, in my opinion, in how they explained what they were doing and how they explained the value add of their research. They were just saying, "I'm doing this, fund me," that kind of. And the other side, the corporates were also like, I have to go Friday afternoon, 2:00. I have other work to do. It was this great disconnect, and I haven't been able to fix it. To my regret, really to my regret. Yeah.
From so many projects, can you maybe pick one example when you feel that there's a real impact from the DLT, and maybe one or two key points why it has such a great impact? And if you can focusing also on the blockchain for good as an example would be useful, but anything will be fine. I'm talking about impact.
Yeah, real societal.
Without the DLT.
Yeah, real societal impact. Huh? So, well, I'm going to say something contradictional now, but say this whole self-sovereign identity thing. I think that is key to an awful lot of problems that we have right now. That it isn't there yet. So our identity basically is given away to Google and Facebook, etc. We have organized ourselves lousy in that area, and say the blockchain, not necessarily as a technology, but as a way of thinking, is really reshaping how we should manage our digital identity. We should be owners of our identity. We shouldn't be giving it away for some lousy game on our mobile phone. And I think that is a real profound change in how we're going to live in the digital world. Having said that, it doesn't have to be a blockchain to solve it. So that's why I'm a little bit ambivalent. All the other ones that I mentioned there above, so like logistics, will shave off cost, will be more efficient. Food provenance will be clear what we buy. Those are also good things. But I think this digital identity, that really goes to the core of who we are in our democracy, etc.
Two questions.
Yep.
Which EU funding programs provided any funding to you? And the second is, can you name a couple of places teaching master degrees in blockchain or DLT?
Yeah.
So EU funding.
EU funding, Zilch. So we went there. They pointed us to certain calls. We tried to. And I understand why. It was not. I was not too pleased about the quality that was delivered. So they were right, but the DG Connect really promoted us, and they're using other funding mechanisms like CEF to build infrastructure elements that can help in the blockchain environment. So CEF is there. Horizon 2020. There's a lot of calls, by the way, that have blockchain in them. So if you're really after Horizon 2020 money, there's plenty of it. Your other question was?
Degrees, master
Yeah, well, it's mostly, for instance, TU Delft as a master program, in Twente as part. I know that in Amsterdam they're doing some things, but TU Delft and TU Twente, there I know really master programs that are teaching DLT.
Nicosia in Cyprus that does that program. Oxford Cyprus.
Yeah.
Oxford Saïd Business School.
Great. Okay. Well, I think that's really as much time as we have for questions for Frans, I'm afraid. So thank our speaker again and invite Rob up for the final.